Will be remembered as the year an overfilled wadi at the start of the rally got the better of two champions, just like they were beginners. 2005, crazy stage. It is common knowledge among veteran desert raiders that the Dakar really only begins when crossing the Mauritanian border. Before that, it is nothing more than a gentle warm-up. The descent towards Tichit began on Wednesday, January 5th, 2005, between Smara and Zouerat. They ran flat out over this track. There wasn't anything too difficult, even though no one is ever safe from a very unwelcome surprise. The car was completely destroyed, the front axle lying fully 100 meters from the vehicle. They rolled 25 times at 160 kilometers an hour. It's a miracle that they're still alive. There was a big, invisible thing, and they just took off.
I'm pretty sure that it was finished.
For many, it is even the debut of a new world with the appearance of the first dune valleys. In 2005, the Dakar entry list was the longest in more than 20 years. 40% of the motorcycle competitors were newcomers to the rally, and some among them already had second thoughts during the prologue on the Castelldefels beach in Spain, where the sand was nothing more than a small mound. The competitors were now in the heart of what they had come in search of, but the learning curve was steep. Exhaustion quickly set in, the never-ending search for balance and the mental strain of having to continually right the bikes. Those who were riding as a family now understood that they would not all arrive together on the shores of Lac Rose.
Mon frère, le 174, on était ensemble dans les dunes. Est parti, ça a été un moment dur. Mais comme il dit, c'est pas grave, il y a assez de misère dans le monde. Nous, c'est rien, hein, c'est juste une course, on reviendra.
The stage from Smara to Zouerat was a brief glimpse of what the competitors could expect on their way to Tichit. The rally truly took on the dimensions of its own legend on Thursday, January 6th, the day of the longest special stage. They're only allowed to take on 20 litres of fuel, but that's not enough to get them to the end. It's due to the thick sand. They're burning currently 15 litres per 100 Ks, and that simply won't last. On this day, the weather was deplorable. The landscape disappeared and the poor fuel economy was a real threat. For the overwhelming majority of the field, the end of Stage 7 at the Titchit Oasis quickly appeared to be a quest for the Holy Grail itself.
Pourquoi il y a un gros tas de fumée là? Plus rien. Fais gaffe parce que s'il y a quelqu'un d'arrêté.
This January 6, 2005, everything sunk into one very long struggle.
Alors, la totale, en plus du vent de sable, il pleut.
Alors là, j'ai déjà vu pleuvoir 3 ou 4 gouttes, mais alors là, comme ça, jamais.
Et pareil, à Paris, il fait meilleur.
In addition to the sandstorm, it's actually raining too. This driver has serious back pain. He stopped to pick up one of the motorcyclists and so doing, strained his back. The long Dakar column was now scattered across the dunes. Bikes were rescued, suspended on long ropes. The helicopters were flying non-stop. Retirements grew, and even the broom truck needed help.
Il va passer, il va arrêter. Hein. Mais de toute façon, je rentre à Dakar parce que j'habite à Dakar. Donc rendez-vous à Dakar, mais pour moi un peu plus tôt forcément.
Je pense que c'est vraiment une des plus dures spéciales que j'ai jamais faites.
Dakar legend Stefan Petter-Hansel thinks this is the hardest special stage he's ever done. The first half was okay because it was fast, but with a lot of camel grass on the last 250 kilometers, he couldn't make any progress. And seven-time Dakar winner Stefan Petter-Hansel was the only one to arrive at Titchit during the day, which pretty much sums up just how crazy this stage really was.
Il y a 4 voitures d'arrivée et il est déjà bien tard et je crois qu'il y en a vraiment qui vont... Je ne sais même pas si tout le monde va sortir alors.
We were almost out of fuel. Finished with 1 liter when we got back.
On this 6th day of January, some finished just in the nick of time. There are also the unnerved, the relieved, and those who are simply very proud of themselves. Some finished on their wheel rims, and others who were pulled by assistance trucks. At the bivouac, everyone was of the same opinion. It wasn't a stage that they'd just been through, but a personal adventure. Soon sleep took over, but at least they weren't sleeping in the middle of the dunes. Many grouped together to wait until daybreak and preserved what little force they had to battle the winds. There were also those who chose to move on at any cost, but each kilometre seemed to stretch on forever.
Sans GPS, dans le noir.
Remember, there's no GPS, and in the dark, there's still 300 kilometers to go. Progress was made at an agonizingly slow pace, and Checkpoint 2 became a sort of advanced base camp 260 kilometers from the finish. Many slept, some stopped just for a moment, others kept going, and there were even a few who could find humor in the situation.
Oh ben les CP ils les foutent toujours dans le sable mou. C'est plus marrant.
In the middle of the moonless night, the desert resembled an immense battlefield where each person fought themselves and held on to what little hope there was.
He wasn't shining down on me today. But we'll get there.
Pour l'instant, c'est impossible de bouger. On attend une demi-heure, trois quarts d'heure.
Zaniroli reckoned it was impossible to move and planned on waiting a half hour or more until the sun was really out, where it might improve conditions. In the early morning, a decision was made to organize a rescue because they no longer counted how many were still stuck out there in the sand. Instead, they deduced by the small numbers at the bivouac during the briefing from race director Etienne Lavigne that many competitors were still in the dunes. And towards 8:30, the organisation teams discovered the spectacle of competitors scattered everywhere and met up with these thoroughly exhausted men.
La nuit, l'enfer.
Apparently, the night had been absolute hell. There was a crazy storm and it was very, very cold. Absolutely nuts. Between Zuarat and Ticit, 64 bikes, 56 cars and 24 trucks dropped out. Four-time winner, the great Ari Vatanen, couldn't finish on his own, and a multitude of competitors broke down, more or less, miles from the finish.
Elle consomme 45 litres au 100.
Ah ouais, t'inquiète, t'as vraiment mon problème.
Ouais, mais je sais.
Il y a assez dans mon intérieur.
Ouais.
Je n'en ai pas assez.
Mais nous, on doit aller jusqu'à Ticit, sinon ça sert à rien de mettre de l'essence.
On va faire 10 de plus.
Super.
D'accord?
Ok.
Alors, attends, Ahmed.
The increased fuel consumption meant bargaining for fuel with the locals. The Dakar has built its reputation on these impossible stages. Zuarat Ticit 2005 is one of them, and no one who experienced it will ever forget it.
It's tough because each leg is very, very, very long, and you lose a lot of energies, and you lose concentration, and that's the way because the car is so hard. It's really the last adventure in this world.